Voodoo. We can do what you do. Easy, believe me. Frontin' niggas give me heebie-jeebies. So while you imitating Al Capone, I be Nina Simone and defecating on your microphone. Ready or not.
Yo,
what's up, bro?
Hey, what's up, brother? We back at it with another episode of Gentleman's History Hour. I'm Rob J10X.
I'm Equality, or AKA EQ. You know, had to get it started with some L Boogie, man. Some Lauryn Hill, man, representing the ladies.
A powerful woman right there. Woman who was brilliant, and I think she, you know, hip hop wise could be an archetype for some of the sisters that we're about to mention. Some of the queen ancestors, you know, that we're about to mention.
Yeah, this the ladies first.
Yeah. I say this, you know, we put a lot of time into preparing for these episodes, you know, and you taking it to a whole nother level, you know, but I really enjoyed, one love, man. But like, I really enjoyed learning these stories, coming into this you know, for me, one of the things that stood out was, you know, the commitment to the cause and the relinquishment of the need for a claim, you know, and that was just really, that was kind of a unique spirit between, you know, a lot of people. I know personally, I studied, you know, Joanne Robinson, obviously, Coretta Scott King, Betty Shabazz. You know, we have our own Houstonian. We're gonna touch on Gertrude, and it was just one of the things that was intriguing to me was how smart how many of them were valedictorians.
Yeah,
you know, Coretta was a valedictorian. I think
education, man, education. But you know what? Since we saluting the women, you know, we saluting the women, and just to get a disclaimer, because hey, when you throw something out there, oh, you didn't name this person, you didn't name. Hey, we focused on a certain segment. Yeah. But this is something that we could do a part 2 or part 3.
Most definitely.
We're not saying that we're gonna try to cover every black woman that you know, kicked down the doors or contributed. But we gotta start by 3.2 million years ago, man, in Ethiopia. We're gonna really keep it.
We're gonna give a shout out
to history, man. You know, we gotta go, you know. Brother Ivan Van Sertima, man, black women in antiquity, man.
Okay.
The first discovered bones was a black lady that the scientists called her Lucy, but discovered in Ethiopia. So, you know, salute the origin, you know.
Hey, most definitely.
You know, if we're gonna take it all the way, the Eve was considered, you know, Lucy, found in Ethiopia, man. But that's just a little side note, you know, just to, you know, to throw it out there for the people, man. But like you were saying, man, it's encouraging. For one, I think we discussed the importance of having this episode. One, it's overdue that we talk about the women and their contributions. And two, we're coming off of the Martin Luther King, the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. And around that time, people talk about the civil rights movement a lot. And one thing that really gets overlooked, I think, in my opinion, is the women that were behind the scenes.
Yeah. I was surprised to learn that basically, you know, for all intents and purposes, the Montgomery Bus Boycott was organized by women. You know, it was women that spearheaded that. Yeah. And, you know, even to hear Martin Luther King's words himself, you know, how he described it, Joanne Robinson, you know, perhaps she's probably the most involved person in the boycott. You know, called her infatigable. You know, you know, just the you know, the contribution and the contribution and commitment to kind of working low key. You know, whether it was a situation where, you know, some of them just flat out, you know, avoided you know, the front lines or you know, being seen. Some of them engaged in just you know, dissimulation and just, you know, confusing people about their personal life. But it was like this commitment to behind the scenes contribution. And I man, it's kind of, I don't lie, it's kind of sad though that, you know, that part they're not really, their page in the story isn't read louder. You know.
You know what? Just on some casual, just on the casual tip, man. When I was doing the deep dive, and I know we initially approached it, you know, from the academic standpoint. One thing I did think about was the some of the men that we talked about and who were they married to a lot of times, man. when you talk about that page in history, just from me thinking about us doing the show and some of the names that we talked about, and initially, you know, just with the foundation of the show, and we were talking, you know, we talked about Marcus Garvey, we talked about Frederick Douglass, we talked about Malcolm X, we've talked about Martin Luther King, of course, but man, the wives.
Yeah.
So one of my semi-deep dives was to look at some of those wives as well, and started with Frederick Douglass's first wife, Anna Murray Douglass, and just for the people, just to understand, Frederick Douglass probably was one of the most photographed men. I doubt that people even know what his first wife even looked like.
Yeah, I couldn't tell.
Just to know that, you know, as popular as Frederick Douglass was, most people probably couldn't even point out who his wife was or even know what her name is. But I don't think we get the Frederick Douglass that we get without her. She was an abolitionist. She was born free. She actually helped him obtain his freedom by, you know, some people say she sold the clothes, or she was working and she did, you know, and they had this a sailor outfit, and he was able to wear that as a part of him escaping to go up north to New York. And she gave him the bread to get away, to get to New York. And then that's when he sent for her, and that's when they got married. So he got his freedom out of New York. He had to leave, I want to say in Boston, because she was a free woman in Massachusetts.
Okay.
So just those little side notes are Marcus Garvey, his first wife, Amy Ashwood Garvey. Garvey was cold. He had two Amy's.
Yeah.
His first and his second wife's name was Amy. But his first wife, it wasn't, and I'm just saying this, it wasn't like these women were ushered into something. Amy Ashwood Garvey was already a Pan-Africanist.
Yeah.
She was along the same lines as Garvey, and then
they didn't get saved.
Yeah, it wasn't like, he gave me the knowledge.
It wasn't like it wasn't a level up, you know.
Yeah, it wasn't like he schooled me to it. But she was the director of the Black Star Line. Yeah, and she helped co-found the newspaper. Yeah, that they had. So you know, just giving those.
I mean, they just
tidbits.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it is, I think that's a common misconception. You know, a lot of times, you know, is that like, Coretta Scott King was going places. You know, she wasn't, sitting around, her sit on the porch and Martin came and chose. No, hey, Martin came with that ring talk day one, first day. Because she was
a musician.
Yeah, she was doing her thing. She was a woman of excellence. Betty Shabazz, these are women that, didn't come and receive value from the relationship. These were women that, were a part of a partnership that really, people came together and elevated each other, and I think that the role, and another thing, I believe that they weren't just at home taking care of home. It wasn't like they're intellectually there wasn't a strong contribution. If you look at the Martin Luther King's "Why I Oppose the Vietnam War" speech, that didn't come from Martin Luther King initially being opposed to Vietnam. That came from Coretta being vocal and speaking out, taking that stance. So these weren't just yes women either.
They stood beside the men.
Yeah, most definitely.
So okay, let's get back to the civil rights movement, man. And I know I kind of gave us a little detour with the wives, and I do want to go back because I think it's even deeper levels that we can touch on.
Most definitely.
With the wives. I'm saying wives, but they eventually became widows. Mm-hmm. But this civil rights movement and what was going on, the 40s, the 50s, and the women, and there's so many names, once you start thinking, there are some names that are popular and known, and there are some that, when you do the research, you say, wow, I didn't know that this person contributed this to the movement. Yeah. So we know the preachers. Mm-hmm. You start thinking about the SCLC and Martin's Row and Abernathy and all of the different the pastors around that time. Rarely do you see the women. And that time around the 50s, the role of a woman, a lot of time was, hey, stay in the house, Mm-hmm. You know, the band goes out, he works, he comes home, the man brings home the bacon.
Yeah.
Or whatever the saying is. So with the turbulent times and what's going on, and then getting into a lady like a Joanne Robinson.
Yeah.
And what she was doing, and being in school and going to Alabama State. Or working as a professor.
Yeah.
At Alabama State.
Really kind of having she had to be on the low, because career-wise, you know.
Yeah. If we talk about her, it's okay. Her connection is connected with Rosa Parks. So most times in Black history, people are going to say Rosa Parks.
Yeah.
Because they know, okay, Rosa Parks, the story is that she refused to give up her seat on the bus.
Yeah, most definitely.
We know that. But the behind the scenes and what was going on, from my understanding, around 1949, Joanne Robinson got on the bus. Mm-hmm. And there were available seats up front.
Yeah.
She sat down. There was nobody sitting in front of the bus. Mm-hmm. The bus driver came and confronted her. And before it became volatile, she stepped off of the bus.
Yep.
Now, she was petitioning to...
was it the WB? It was an organization that she was a part of that she later became president.
Yeah, it was the WPC, the Women's Political Council.
Okay, yeah. No,
that she was a part of. But what I want to say is, from about 1950 to 1955, she was petitioning the Montgomery City Commission. Yeah. Because this is the Montgomery boycott.
Yeah, I know she met with the mayor. She knocked on every door to try to, before the Montgomery bus boycott. I mean, even though this is what she wanted from the beginning, but she earned that. She earned that ride, because she had to get a lot of people on board. But once she became the president of the organization, and then happening with what happened with Rosa Parks, and even though it was, we now know it was kind of done to incite what happened. Mm-hmm. She was really instrumental, and I have no idea what a mimeograph is, but I was taking some notes on her. The night of the Rosa Parks incident, because this was originally going to just be a one-day protest. Yeah. This woman with a small team printed out 51,000 handbills.
Yeah, she had 2 students and another professor.
It would be hard to print out 51,000 handbills with a printer.
And that was to promote.
Yeah,
that was to promote. But she also called Rosa Parks just to let her know, like, hey, it's kind of like, hey, I want to do this. Yeah. And it eventually became the Montgomery bus boycott.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
She had that foresight, and that event happened in 1959, and then her just petitioning on her own, and then that one day of, okay, let's boycott, eventually became the Montgomery bus boycott, which gave us the prominence of Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah, and you could through just a deductive reasoning say that maybe it probably is the Montgomery bus boycott that really shapes King into really, locking in on nonviolent protests, because it worked. To me, the civil rights movement, like the Montgomery bus boycott, it's like it was the debut album. It was that first one, it just went, I like what Joanne said in her memoir, and she described it as an oppressed but brave people whose pride and dignity rose to the occasion, conquered fear, and faced whatever perils that had to be confronted. The boycott is the most beautiful memory all of us who participated will carry to our final resting place. Yeah. Because they came together, it was this was really instrumental, not only in what it achieved there, but what ultimately, strategically wound up being one of the dominating strategies in our protests moving forward.
Yeah, if we get to 1955 and Rosa Parks, now we got to come to H-Town.
Hey, shout out to that Gertrude.
Yeah, Gertrude Jane. Well, at this time, she was going by Gertrude Jane Holiday. Okay. She hadn't been married yet. Okay. So if we circle to 1952, this lady, Gertrude Jane, coming out of Houston, she went to Jack Yates alumni, Jack Yates High School in Houston, Texas. She was Miss Yates in 1952.
Wow, okay.
She ended up going to Fisk University out in Nashville
Okay.
So the same year, close to around almost the same month of Rosa not giving up her seat on the bus in Montgomery, this lady on her
train
holiday back.
Yeah.
You know, you take the college break. She was on the train on her way back from Nashville to Houston, and she refused to give up her seat on the train. Mm-hmm. She had other people sitting there with her, and her friends, they got up and they went. She said, no, I'm refusing to give up my seat. So that's some Houston history.
Yeah, that's a real.
She eventually became Gertrude Jane Holiday Stone, but at this time in 1955, when she refused to give up her seat on that train, she was Gertrude Jane Holiday.
Yeah, I was surprised to learn about like her. I mean, I never, I just assumed that like the Houston African American Museum just was founded by Houston or something. Like I didn't really, know that how some of the things that she had done. And
it was the same month as Rosa Parks.
Yeah. And like, they didn't have no Instagram, month. So it wasn't probably like okay, you heard about. So it was just probably that spirit was just in the vibration because you got Emmett Till and all that.
So Joanne Robinson, 1959, and then that leading up to the boycott of 1955. And then the parallels of what was going on with Gertrude Jane out here in Houston. And then keeping in that spirit of the civil rights and the women. I mean, we could talk Fannie Lou Hamer, or we can go Ella Baker and the accomplishments that Ella Baker and what she was doing behind the scenes. She was, considered. She spearheaded the SCLC, the Southern Christian Leadership.
Okay.
So and that's where once again with Martin and some of the other men that
who were some of the people that she was mentoring there?
She was mentoring some of the founders in SNCC, like Kwame Ture. At that time he was going by Stokely Carmichael. But these are just things that I don't know if once again the history books are going to school. You're not gonna get it. Yeah. If we don't dig into it, we're not gonna know who some of these women are.
Most definitely.
A lot of times when you watch stuff or you see things, people have been picked for us.
Yep.
Certain people have been picked for us and presented, and they say, okay, this is the person.
Yeah.
And rarely do you see that person as a woman a lot of times.
Most definitely.
And coming off of this, we did forget to mention, just in the current history, the first elected vice president. Kamala Harris.
Yeah, so it was just, I figured that was obvious.
Yeah, but then that'll be in the history books.
Most definitely. But speaking to her background, I like what she said. One of my quotes I love her was, "You didn't see me on television. You didn't see news stories about me. The kind of role I tried to play was to pick up pieces or put pieces out of which I hoped organization might come. My theory is that strong people don't need strong leaders." That's a real interesting philosophy. That's a very strong philosophy. So it's like, it's kind of it really becomes almost like a double whammy when it looks at like the dimming of their light, because not only is their light dimmed, from a place of maybe just malice or a lack of recognition, then on top of that, they didn't necessarily care about the light. So it's like it makes it even dimmer, but I think that
with Ella Baker, man, with being out in Mississippi and she played a prominent role in the NAACP out of Mississippi. And one of the quotes, when we talk about Martin, because Martin has always been the face of the civil rights movement. Mm-hmm. But another one of Ella Baker's quotes was, Martin didn't make the movement made Martin.
I mean, that's I gotta say that's probably kind of true. I mean, I don't really see like, yeah.
She was prominent in also helping organize the grassroots movement within the NAACP. She was more of like a mentor. And also, just to paint the picture for the people that's watching this, at that time, like I said, once again, we're talking about the 50s. So she's working in this environment where it's like, hey, go get me some coffee, or go, that's the perception. Mm-hmm. So you're battling that, and you still handling your business behind the scenes, and you're still training, and you're a leader.
Yeah, most definitely. Like holding it down. And yeah, for me, I really enjoyed Septina Clark's story, and hopefully I'm pronouncing it correctly, because like what she did to me, I mean, I don't want to rank the great who's better at, but I just think to be able to turn somebody from, you know, uneducated to functionally literate to wanting to be able to be a part of the political process, you know, the empowerment that she did through as a teacher. You know, I just when I learned about her story, it was like the story of a hero. You know, someone who's teaching kids by day, and then at night teaches illiterate adults. You know, a teacher principal, and the only teacher at a school with 136 students. You know, like just the impact that she had. And then the speed at which she was able to do it too, to come up with those learning methods to say that, hey, you know, we can, you know, get you up and running, you know, get you in. I was even, you know, not to get too sidetracked, but I was thinking like, what is a modern skill set that will just empower people, like the way that, like, you know, and I don't know what that is, but for her to identify like how powerful, you know, this skill is. And then it wasn't just all like, you know, voting. It was voting, driver's license, Sears mail catalog.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of the women were in the forefront of voting and our voting rights. Because in 1954, that's when the Brown versus Board of Education was going on, desegregating the schools. And then Fannie Lou Hamer was very prominent in the voting rights. Okay. And you got to think with Fannie Lou Hamer, remember her being arrested, being beat by the cops. Yeah. Being put in jail. I think we touched on this a little bit when we were talking about the orators. And one of the times when Malcolm X was opening for her, he was giving his speech to open for her to give a speech. And one thing she was famous for saying was, we sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Hey, they still say that to this day.
Yeah, and Fannie Lou Hamer, man, just, you know, just for the people, if you have, I mean, the son also, but especially if you have a daughter or some young woman, we're naming these names, but to really, really dig as deep as you can to understand the shoulders that they stand on as women, to instill that pride and understand that you don't have to play the background. No, these women, they paved the way for themselves. They didn't wait on someone to give them permission. Yeah. You know what they say? They didn't ask permission. Yeah. They say, don't ask permission, ask forgiveness.
Most definitely. And it wasn't like they were doing something like, oh, sneak and do it. They were doing like things that were wound up being very impactful and valuable and really invaluable, you know. So because there was like a certain initiative and a certain commitment to just that greater good and that sacrifice. And, you know, one thing I had to take a look at, you know, I was just thinking about, you know, in particular, like the Betty Shabazz and like the Coretta, and is that, you know, when their husbands were leading movements, doing things that they were doing, but they had a wife at home who, you know, was there for them, also was, you know, hands-on with the kids. So, you know, you understand like the nature of the partnership. But after Malcolm and after Martin died, their wives take on the work that they were doing, but the wives don't have wives. So it's like, you know, like, so it's like, man, it's like, man, like, so I'm like, man, like, you know, that's some real, like, she don't have no one at home take it while she goes out and does this talk and does this.
Yeah, you're right. So let's dig into that. One name I forgot, Houston, Barbara Jordan too.
Yeah, we gotta get it.
Prominent in the civil rights movement, and we'll get back to Barbara Jordan with some of her stats. Yeah. But one of the big things, her speech at the 1976 Democratic National Convention. She was the first woman to speak at the Democratic National Convention, and her being just the debate team at TSU and that history. So, you know, just the Houston, the women coming out of Houston. Barbara Jordan came out of Phyllis Wheatley. Gertrude Jane. came out of Yates. Barbara Jordan came out of Phyllis Wheatley, right in 5th Ward. So just knowing that we have that history here in Houston, I'm pretty sure if you dig, you'll find more and more women that whose names aren't written on the blimp and known. But so the widows. This is the touching part, man. Just on the my puzzle pieces was always Coretta. Man, okay, we know Martin. What's going on with Coretta? We know Malcolm. What's going on with Betty Shabazz? And another lady that from doing a deep dive on Betty, just Merle Evers, Medgar Evers' wife.
Yeah.
So Medgar Evers, okay, he was a field officer for the NAACP out of Mississippi. Man, Mississippi has some deep, rich history. A lot of these women, a lot of the names were coming out of the South, coming out of Mississippi. He was assassinated. He was killed by white supremacists in his driveway. His wife, Merle Evers, she discovers him. She has to see her husband, 1963. I want to say he was about 37 years old, laying dead in the driveway. They had kids.
That sucks.
Okay, now, Coretta, I want to say, was around 41 years old. She was a couple of years older than Martin. They had 4 kids.
Yeah.
Martin gets assassinated. It's a single mother, 4 kids. Betty Shabazz. Malcolm. We know Malcolm. Fiery Malcolm. Malcolm X. El-Haj Malik El Shabazz. That's why Betty Shabazz is because Malcolm in his death was El-Haj Malik El Shabazz. Dr. Betty Shabazz. Pregnant with twins. They already had 4 girls.
Yeah.
Pregnant with twins. She's there. Merle Evers, Betty was there to see Malcolm in that Autobahn ballroom.
Yeah.
Take those bullets. 4 girls at home. Now you got to raise 6 girls by yourself at the age of 31.
Yeah.
Because Malcolm was about 9 years older than her.
And it's not like these. I mean, it's not really. I'm not gonna say it would have been. They didn't have the right to, but like, who do you marry when you're the widow of Malcolm X? Like,
well, Betty said that.
She
actually said that.
Oh,
she was like, what,
like,
who do I marry after Malcolm?
Yeah, so it's like, I mean, that's a real,
But they had a connection. So 63, Medgar Evers is assassinated. His wife becomes a widow. 65, Betty Shabazz becomes a widow. 68, Coretta Scott King becomes a widow. And these women don't really connect until they become widows. It was later in life. And just from reading their story, just getting the perception of the wives at that time.
Yeah.
Because somebody had to raise the kids. These guys are out. They're speaking. And you got to live with the fact that you have to have these talks. These women have all stated that they've had these talks that this may be the last day.
Yeah.
Just imagine that.
Yeah.
Your husband is in a position, it's almost like he's going off to war.
Yeah.
You're having this conversation like, and in Betty Shabazz's case, the house gets firebombed.
Yeah.
So now you got these 4 little girls. And here's another thing that a lot of people don't think about. We talk about the men, but let's get into the mind state of the women. Mm-hmm. These women that are married to these prominent men, that we hear their names. If you have 4 little girls, if you're a Coretta, if you're Betty Shabazz, and daddy's dead, you know what the question is? Mommy, are you going to be okay?
Yeah.
Are we going to be okay? Are they going to try to kill us?
Yeah. Well, I think like one of the things that I feel like, I think our generation has really kind of mutated and in some, almost perverse ways of things that were like, they like the term ride or die chick. So like to me, this is the epitome of that. Like the ride or die meaning like it's not going to be comfortable being with me. Being with me means that you're going to hear things about evil things said about me. There's going to be, I may not be here the whole time. I think that's what the original ride or die was. The original ride or die was that like, hey, to love me is to, really, be in something that's going to be real. I'm going to love you with all my heart. I'm going to be everything I can be. But I can't promise it's gonna be a smooth ride. I think that's what ride or die used to mean.
One of the quotes that Betty Shabazz said was, "I'm not an extension of Malcolm. I'm an element of Malcolm."
Yeah.
And with Marilee Evers, one of her goals was to bring attention to Megger. Yeah. It's like, hey, so the dynamics of, and we're talking about the wives, the dynamics of you're being Coretta Scott King and Martin Luther King is assassinated. Betty, she's the wife of Martin Luther King, and her relationship was with Coretta was
Coretta, the wife.
Yeah, Coretta, the wife of King. Betty, the wife who eventually becomes the widow of Malcolm X. The thing about Betty that made it interesting, when Martin passed, it was Coretta had already been active in the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
And now as we come to know, Martin wasn't the most liked person.
Yeah.
During the time of his death. But it was still let's just say from a marketing standpoint, Coretta, it was a easier sell for Coretta. It was a harder sell for Betty because Malcolm he wasn't the most liked brother.
Yeah, and look, I was listening to speeches today, like even post his death. She was still throwing bows. She wasn't giving those, nice, friendly talks.
Yeah, but she was in a crossfire of Betty's upbringing. Betty was more of a middle class. She went to Tuskegee. She was going to school to be a nurse. When she met Malcolm, she was a nurse. Now, she met Malcolm because she left Tuskegee. It was like, hey, I'm the South. I can't take it anymore. Yeah. I'm going up north. And she meets Malcolm.
I think the South was really a new introduction to that level of racism, from her upbringing. Because I think is she from Detroit or from? I know she was not from the South. I think she either was born there or grew up a portion of her time there. And I think she was adopted at some point as well.
Yeah, when she was around 12 years old, she went and stayed with another family, and that's what influenced her to go to Tuskegee. Okay, so she already had a career when she met Malcolm. Yeah, Malcolm's philosophy was, hey, stay at home, take care of the kids.
Oh, hey, I want to go back to one thing I was listening today about their marriage, and like as much as I love MLK, but I can honestly say my journey in life, and I learned more from Malcolm's evolution because I've had to I've taken really strong positions that I've later gone back and been like, well, I don't quite see it that way anymore. I think he was openly and willing to do that. But it was discussing how early in their marriage, it was really like kind of a traditional, of, their religious covenant where it was pretty much the man makes the rules. I decide on this, I decide on that. Yep. And they were talking one day, he was saying he was just, in his role, and she said something about what she wanted. And he was like, he had a moment of clarity, like, wait, I just realized that I've been doing all the talking this whole time we've been in this thing. Like, I have never listened. This is the first time I can really just recall me listening to you. And that was like a dynamic that changed their relationship from being like one of hey,
he was self-conscious at that moment. He became conscious of like, I need to listen more.
Yeah, exactly. Like it was like, man, like we in this together. Like I should be counseling you more, But then that's what I always appreciated about Malcolm was like he was, like I said, sincere about everything. And when he did come into a better way of doing something, a lot of times he did accept that, But I thought that was real dynamic about them. Because the way they met was somebody had invited her to come to I guess like a nation talk or something like that, and she was like it was it was kind of boring or whatever, and she wasn't. They asked her to join, she was like, no, I'm not interested. But the lady told her, oh yeah, but wait till you meet my pastor. and then once Malcolm came in there, for all intents and purposes, everything I've read and heard is like Malcolm had sauce, he had that civil. So
he was charismatic, man. He could fill up the room with his energy, and so with Betty, this is widow Betty. The expectation is that, oh, you like Malcolm. She's caught at this crossroads of for one, they had no money.
Yeah.
Malcolm wasn't saving any money. They had no insurance policy. Few $100s left in the bank. So now the survival, you got to survive with 6 little girls, 6 kids. These kids were young when Malcolm was assassinated. So the money situation. This is where that cooperative economics comes together. Harry Belafonte's wife and other middle-class black women were pooling their money together for Betty. Alex Haley was giving her royalties off of the autobiography of Malcolm X. So that helped. Yeah. That helped with the money that she needed. So she moves out to Mount Vernon in New York. Once again, the marketing of the men in their lives. MLK is one way. Coretta, hey, civil rights movement, it's a easier brand. Yeah. Betty, widow of Malcolm X, she moves into this neighborhood, black middle class neighborhood. Word gets around, that's Malcolm X widow. Oh, no, we might keep our kids away from them. Kids may be radical.
And that's terrible.
Kids may be putting stuff in our kids. Yeah. Head. So now you're dealing with this the two worlds. The world of what your husband talked about and this other world. So Betty was kind of, from my reading, going back to her roots of, okay, I'll just be middle class again. She went back to school, 6 kids. She got a postgraduate, then she got a doctorate. Yeah. And then she started teaching at, ironically, Medgar Evers College. So she's teaching, but it's this duality. That's the word I was looking for. It's this duality of, okay, the Panthers come to pick her up. Yeah. Interesting story. You know, Hugh come pick her up. They like, hey, this the queen.
Yeah, and we're proud to do it.
Picked her up with guns galore. She just, Betty's like, whoa, I've been around guns because Malcolm, Malcolm kept shotguns at the house, but man, Huey was like, hey, we gonna protect the queen. So she had to come out of her shell to continue the legacy of Malcolm and speaking. I think initially it may have been uncomfortable because their perception is, okay, she's just like Malcolm. Once again, I'm an element of Malcolm. I'm not an extension of Malcolm.
Yeah, no, I think
with Coretta, it was more of, she's already in the civil rights movement, moving in the same direction that Malcolm was moving. That Martin was moving in.
Yeah, it was an easier burn, because it was all, and then this reality is like she was she was more comfortable to majority of Americans, both white and probably black, versus like even though Malcolm X is a very honorable man, and but I think it just didn't take Christian, it was the popular faith, the popular this, everything, and then the rebranding of King post death as the I Have a Dream King. Yeah. But they kind of re-rocked it and made it almost like it's almost like comparing like a artist on like a major label to like an indie, like as far as like the way they're marketing and were presented.
So if Coretta was kind of in one crowd. Yeah, she was still in that civil rights crowd, the religious, the Southern Christian type crowd. Betty was breaking out of the shell of, for one, the middle class crowd. So you're hanging with the middle class, but then you're also in places with Maya Angelou, and Nikki Giovanni, and Sonia Sanchez, and all these poets and you got the poets, the intellectuals. So you kind of caught the cultural nationalists are like, this Betty, hey. Yeah. We love Malcolm. We love Malcolm. Why you hanging around those bourgeois Negroes? Mm-hmm. The bourgeois Negroes, Betty, hey, they don't really love Malcolm like that. So with Betty, it was her story of living a life as the widow of Malcolm X seemed one of her existing in two places. And one thing that was familiar about all of these widows was wanting to keep the legacy of their husbands alive. Yeah. But still having to bring up, it's kind of like you can't forget it. So every time you talk about it, you have to bring up those memories, or you got to go back to certain points in time. Or your kids are saying, you know, where's dad?
Even outside of like just the Martin and the Mouth, just black love at that time, and just women and the relationship between a woman and a man. The fact that, you know, both Martin and Malcolm, these men realized early, man, I need a good wife. You know, like, you know, Martin was talking about marriage on day one. You know,
yeah, they got married around 53. Yeah.
So like it was like, you know, and I know we're talking about like particular women of the civil rights movement, but I even think about like just the role that women as a whole, whether they're not even the Betty Shabazz, just the woman that me and you have never heard of, because I look at like and just seeing a glimpse in my my grandparents, you know, my grandfather, he's, you know, Dr. Mayberry, this that, and other, and he put 5 kids through college or whatever, cash money, and had this, and he's this team, man. You take away what my grandmother was doing in the house, I don't see none of that happening. Like the stuff that women were doing, it was just like, I don't know, it seemed like there was a true partnership, and I think that, like, I don't know if maybe we just changed it as a whole. We've changed as men too. It's not just a women thing. Like maybe we value recognition more, because I just never really, I mean, granted I wasn't there, but it doesn't sound like these women really wanted credit. It seemed like they were like there was a commitment to the mission, or it could have been the fact that they just accepted they wouldn't get credit and just let it go. I don't know, you know, but it just seemed like a different archetype in the belief of like the partnership and the commitment to the greater good. You know,
the structure of the family around that time, the structure of the family and what was going on in the world at that time. And women, a lot of these women that we talked about, a lot of the organizations that they were a part of or that they started, it had, you know, women in front of it. It was the WPC, the women's this, the women's that, you know, they were spearheading organizations that had the stamp on it that, hey, for women. And so one of the things I really want people to take away from this conversation is, with Gentleman's History Hour, with this show, is looking at history from, of course, you have the lens of, okay, take a list, look at the names. Black history is going to come up and you're going to say, oh, I'm going to see this name, this name, this name, this name. Outside of that box, yeah, we always hear Malcolm, we always hear Martin. What about Coretta? What about Betty? What about Merle Evers? What about some of these other women that played these prominent roles in the civil rights? And this is just the tip of the iceberg in the civil rights movement. We're not even, you know, we can go even deeper, like I said, with later episodes, because I don't want people to think that we're trying to put all these women in one vacuum and that's it. One thing about our show is that, you know, ideas come and we want to do the research, and hopefully it continues to spark the flame. And this is one of those, really just speaking to the women, older women, and especially younger women, and looking at the now, because we always try to give some context to the now and trying to figure out, we see a Michelle Obama next to a Barack. They're standing next to each other, and everyone, there's no behind the scenes. She's just as popular as Barack, or damn near as popular. We're gonna see Kamala as the VP. We're talking about the women who paved the way that maybe had to be more behind the scenes. So we gotta dig to find their names. We had to dig. So there are women. I'm just encouraging people, to dig and find.
Black history
there are black women in our families.
Yeah, but like the black history journey is an intentional journey. You have to be intentional about, you know, what it is, you know, because this isn't gonna come knocking on your doorstep. You're gonna have to go looking for it. Now, and you don't have to be no world-class scholar, none. You could start with just a Google search, but you're gonna have to start, because it's not gonna come find you.
Yeah, because when we talk about, and this, I had to check myself on this, and I had to ask myself a question. I said, man, if someone was to ask me, I can roll man, I'm inspired by Malcolm. I'm inspired by this person. I'm like, what women? I need to check myself. That was some sharp women that I need to do a better job of adding that to my repertoire of studying and being influenced. Because sometimes it gets neglected. It's the testosterone is, oh man, I'm reading on Malcolm, man. Malcolm is my guy. I'm reading on. I was just as interested in Betty's story as I was in Malcolm's story.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I was just as interested in Coretta's story. And I'm pretty sure, there are stories behind a lot. Fannie Lou Hamer. Yeah. Ella Baker. A lot of these different women. Joanne Robinson. Just to put yourself in the mind state. Yeah, we hear about Rosa Parks, but the movement it's just like Malcolm. Rosa didn't choose the movement. The movement chose her.
Yeah. I think, man, one thing it just reminded me of too is just like, us. I know, like, I feel like things are getting better, but as us as black men and black women, we're at our best when we are, one, when we're collaborative, when we playing for the same team. I think, I was telling Savvi before the show, I said, you know what I think squashes all beef between any enemy? Mm-hmm. A bigger problem. So like when you got a bus, it's kind of hard to have these, but not that I don't wish the bigger problem. I just think, and I feel like we are returning slowly to that, because I mean, we need each other, and we can't, and when there's nothing there's not an accomplishment that, I've read, so far that couldn't have been done, without a collaborative effort of us, together. And I don't really know of any man that we've studied so far. I haven't read one where it was like, oh man, he would have been better off if he just never married. Like I haven't seen that story, in particular, at least when it comes to our history. So I think, we should, just take that in mind. And people out here too, I'd say, I'll leave it with this. I love Gertrude
Jane.
Gertrude Jane's quote or advice for people, is just do something that'll make the world better. And reality is, you may not be Rosa Parks. You may be Gertrude. You may be something. You may be a role that only a small spoken few know. But if we all collectively contribute, then
I always look at it like this. It's a balance in my life, and I had to make a conscious decision at a point in my life and say, if I know all of these rappers, I need to know the men that paved the way outside of music and entertainment. Mm-hmm. And I'll make that same challenge when we talk about the women that have made these strong contributions. Yeah, there's nothing wrong if you want to listen to a particular type of music. Let's say Meg Thee Stallion. Little girl knows Meg Thee Stallion. She's 17 years old. That's what she want to listen to. But at the same time, Barbara Jordan had just as many bars.
Yeah, that's funny.
She had just as many bars. Ella Baker had just as many bars.
Most definitely.
Like I said, we're just touching the tip of the iceberg. We're not even going all the way back to some of the. We're staying in this lane because of what's going on with Martin Luther King. We know we hear the civil rights. And one of the other goals of what we do before we wrap it up is that, hey, nobody can tell our story like we can tell it. Yeah. We can't wait on somebody else to put the names on the billboard. We put it out there, do the deep dives. We just, like I said, we touched on the tip of the iceberg, but hopefully you guys can jot down some of these names and go even deeper. And once you start going deep, the puzzle pieces will start making sense. You're gonna find out why this happened, why that happened. It'll just land in your lap.
Yep. Hey, man, have fun, but do something meaningful, man. That's all I'll say, man.
Hey, this is Gentleman's History Hour, ladies first. In the words of Queen Latifah and Moni Love's Ladies First edition, we appreciate y'all. Hit the subscribe button. We appreciate all of the love and all of the comments. We don't take that for granted. Thank y'all. Peace.
Hi, Mom.
If you're watching this on YouTube, man, hey, y'all, hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. This is Gentleman's History Hour.